At dawn, as the soft light of early morning painted the sky with gentle shades of gold and pink, a cool mist clung to the ancient stone of Buckingham Palace. The rising sun made the gleaming gates and polished railings shimmer like strands of light against the old building. Standing at his post was the royal guard, Thomas Carter, a man whose bearing and quiet authority made him stand out without even trying. At just 27, Thomas carried himself with the seriousness of someone much older. His record showed 3 tours of duty, many commendations, and the great honor of guarding the palace. The morning light glinted off his red tunic and brass buttons, which shone like little stars against the crisp fabric. His well-fitted hat added several inches to his height, and every part of his uniform was perfect, from his squared shoulders and steady chin to the shining, mirror-like finish of his boots that reflected the early sunlight. As visitors began to arrive, their excited chatter and clicking cameras filled the palace grounds with a steady hum. Children pointed and whispered, some trying to catch the royal guard's eye, while others hid shyly behind their parents. A tour guide's voice rose above the murmur, explaining the meaning behind the guards' traditional dress and their history. "These guards are not just for show," she said clearly for all to hear. "They are elite soldiers trained to protect and serve." A few tourists nodded with respect, though many continued snapping photos, treating Thomas like a famous landmark rather than a dedicated soldier. As the square warmed with more visitors, some kept a respectful distance while others edged closer to the barriers, desperate to capture the perfect shot. Throughout it all, Thomas remained still, every muscle showing discipline honed over years of military service. He was as unmoving as the palace itself, a living symbol of tradition, honor, and duty. Yet on this seemingly normal morning, events were about to test those values in ways that no one could have imagined. Through the gathering crowd, a young man in his mid-20s pushed his way forward. With designer sunglasses perched on carefully styled hair, a fitted shirt bearing the words "Social Media King" across the chest, and a large iced coffee clutched in one hand, he clearly wanted attention. His name was Jamie Thompson, and his TikTok account boasted 500,000 followers who loved his daring pranks. "Guys, check this out!" Jamie shouted as he got ready for a selfie video. "We're about to make this moment legendary." He flashed a peace sign at his phone, while his other hand adjusted the expensive camera hanging around his neck. Behind him, 3 friends sniggered and began recording on their phones, egging him on with the challenge. "Bet you can't make him smile." One friend even shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "£100 says he doesn't even blink." Jamie's face lit up with excitement at the challenge. He quickly handed his coffee to one of his mates and swaggered toward Thomas, intentionally stepping into the guard's line of sight. "Oi, mate!" Jamie called out dramatically, waving his hand. "Your hat's bigger than my future." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd, though most of the onlookers shifted uncomfortably. Thomas, however, remained perfectly still, his eyes fixed straight ahead and his posture unchanged. The rising sun caught the medals on his chest, sending bright flashes over the square, silent honors of his service that Jamie completely overlooked. "Come on," Jamie urged, stepping even closer to the barrier. "Don't be such a stick in the mud. We're all here to have a bit of fun, aren't we?" Turning to the cameras, he added, "Look at this guy. Probably thinks he's too important to even say hello." His friends laughed louder, encouraged by Jamie's boldness. One of them, wearing a matching prankster t-shirt, lobbed a wet paper napkin that landed right near Thomas's polished boots. A soft gasp went through the crowd, but Thomas did not even twitch. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jamie announced theatrically, "I present to you London's most expensive statue." He pulled out his phone, narrating for his followers. "We're at Buckingham Palace, and here's a man who gets paid to ignore people. Best job ever, right?" A mother gently pulled her young son away while whispering about respect, and an elderly couple shook their heads in disapproval. Yet Jamie was too caught up in his performance to notice the change in the crowd's mood. "Watch this," he said to his phone before turning back to Thomas. "Hey, mate, I reckon those hats are fake. Probably bought at a bargain shop, am I right?" His friends roared with laughter, though their voices now carried an uneasy tone as the atmosphere grew more tense. Retrieving his coffee from his friend, Jamie took a long sip through his straw, studying Thomas's unmoved face. "Maybe he's not ignoring us," Jamie mused out loud. "Maybe he's asleep with his eyes open." At this point, the crowd had swelled. People began pulling out phones and recording not just Jamie's antics, but also his growing disrespect. The air was thick with anticipation of what might happen next. Thomas, the royal guard, stood unwavering, a pillar of dignity amidst the mounting provocation. His eyes stayed fixed ahead, his stance perfect, but a subtle tension appeared in his jaw, barely noticeable to everyone except the most observant. The peaceful morning had shifted to something more precarious, and everyone felt it. Emboldened by the flood of comments on his live stream, Jamie decided to escalate his act. He stepped even closer to the barrier, the iced coffee dangerously swishing in its plastic cup. "Guys, I don't think our friend here is very friendly," Jamie declared to his online audience, his voice dripping with mock concern. "I mean, I came all the way from America just for this." He checked his phone, grinning at the incoming flood of comments. "The fans want more action, buddy." A distinguished-looking man wearing a veteran's cap stepped forward from the crowd. "Young man," he said steadily and firmly, "that uniform deserves respect." Jamie spun around, his face lighting up at the chance for more drama. "Oh yeah? It's just fabric and buttons, old-timer. I could buy that whole outfit on Amazon." His friends snickered, though their laughter sounded more nervous as more tourists began to turn their heads in disapproval. Jamie, undeterred, began a theatrical march, exaggerating each step in a clumsy mimicry of the guard's disciplined movements. "Look at me, I'm so important," he mocked, flailing his arms in absurd arcs. More phones emerged from the crowd, but now the expressions on people's faces were mostly disapproving. "This is going viral for sure," one of Jamie's friends called out, though his voice wavered slightly as he noticed a palace security officer watching from afar. The crowd, now forming a wide semicircle around the unfolding scene, murmured and whispered. Parents tried to explain to their children why Jamie's behavior was wrong, while a group of Japanese tourists lowered their cameras and bowed slightly in apology to the royal guard before stepping back from the commotion. "Hey, statue man," Jamie continued, taking another loud sip of his coffee. "I heard you train for months just to stand still. Must have been a real tough course. Did you practice in front of a mirror, or did your mum teach you how to stand still?" He paused dramatically, then sneered. Although Thomas remained motionless, those closest to him could see a slight change, a quiet intensity building in his eyes as he gripped his rifle a little tighter, the only sign that he was aware of the escalating situation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jamie announced, arms spread wide, "I think we need to help out our mate here. He clearly is having a bad day. Maybe he needs a drink to loosen up." He shook his almost empty coffee cup, the ice clinking ominously inside. The veteran in the crowd stepped forward again. "That's enough, son. You've had your fun." Jamie's eyes sparkled with a hint of malice. "We haven't even started the fun part yet," he replied, turning back to his phone. "Okay, guys, watch this. We're about to make history." The tension in the square had reached a breaking point. Even Jamie's friends began to edge backwards, sensing that a line was about to be crossed. The security officer moved closer, though still too far away to step in immediately. More phones were raised as everyone sensed that something dramatic was about to happen. Thomas, the royal guard, stood firm, his dedication and discipline evident in every line of his stance. Yet there was something else now, a quiet readiness, like a coiled spring waiting to be released. The next moments would test not only his training, but the very meaning of wearing that uniform. "Time for the grand finale," Jamie declared, raising his coffee cup high so that his phone could capture every moment. The ice rattled against the plastic as he swirled it, droplets of condensation sparkling in the sunlight. The crowd seemed to hold its breath as they sensed the impending disaster. A child whispered, "Mummy, he's not going to," but was quickly hushed by a parent. The veteran stepped forward, his face darkening with concern, yet too far away to do anything. "Let's see if our statue friend here is thirsty," Jamie continued, his voice turning theatrical as he addressed his live audience. "This is about to become London's most expensive cup of coffee." Time seemed to slow as Jamie pulled his arm back. The security officer started running, but was still some 20 yards away. Thomas remained perfectly still, though the tension in his jaw had deepened, a silent signal that he was fully aware of what was about to occur. Then, with a swift movement, Jamie shouted, "3!" And as his two friends raised their cameras, he threw the cup in a high arc. Brown liquid and ice crystals caught the sunlight as they flew through the air, heading straight for Thomas's face and his immaculate uniform. In that split second, everything changed. With a speed that seemed almost impossible, Thomas's right hand shot up from his rifle in one smooth motion born of years of training. He caught the cup in midair, without a single drop touching his uniform. The crowd froze, stunned by his incredible reflexes. For the first time that morning, Thomas's eyes met Jamie's. The young man's smug grin vanished, replaced by sheer shock. An absolute silence fell over the square, broken only by the sound of ice settling in the cup. A hushed voice whispered, "Oh my God," as the onlookers took in what had just happened. When Thomas finally spoke, his voice rumbled across the square like distant thunder. "That will be quite enough," he said calmly. Every word was measured and heavy with the weight of centuries of tradition. He did not need to shout. His tone carried an authority that made Jamie step back. The crowd gasped and murmured while phones continued recording every moment. Slowly, Thomas lowered the cup to his side, his eyes never leaving Jamie's face, a look that made the tourist's bravado crumble entirely. I was just," stammered Jamie, his phone dropping to his side as he forgot about the live stream. His friends had already begun to back away into the crowd. The security officer finally reached them, pausing as he saw that Thomas had the situation completely under control. Standing still in his ceremonial uniform, Thomas now radiated an authority that filled the entire square. Jamie's face turned from shocked white to a deep red as he realized that his viral moment had not gone as planned. Now the crowd's phones were capturing his humiliation instead of the grand triumph he had imagined. Thomas's next movements were a lesson in military precision. Still holding the quart coffee cup, he took one measured step forward, his boots striking the cobbles with a sound that echoed throughout the suddenly silent square. Without raising his voice, his next words carried to every corner. "In 250 years of duty at this palace," he said in a calm yet steely tone, "we have faced revolution, war, and countless attempts at provocation. Yet here you stand, thinking a coffee cup can do what armies could not." The crowd remained transfixed, listening to each measured word as Thomas continued. "This uniform represents the sacrifices of generations. The men who wore it before me died, defending what you now mock. This is not a costume, sir. It is a symbol of duty, honor, and respect. Clearly these ideas escape your understanding." A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Someone clapped briefly but soon fell silent, sensing that Thomas was not finished. Behind Jamie, the security officer took a firm position, though he did not step in immediately, recognizing that this lesson in respect needed to be delivered. In a final, smooth motion that looked almost rehearsed, Thomas rotated the coffee cup in his hand and examined it with deliberate care. "Your name is on the cup," he observed, his voice taking on a conversational tone. "Jamie Thompson, along with your social media handle. I see how convenient that is for the authorities." Jamie's face lost all its color as his Adam's apple bobbed with each nervous swallow. His friends had long since disappeared into the crowd, leaving him to face the consequences alone. The veteran who had tried to intervene earlier now nodded in approval at Thomas's calm handling of the situation. "The Metropolitan Police take a very dim view of any assault on a royal guard," Thomas continued, his voice unwavering. "I believe they will be very interested in the multiple videos of your actions today." He gestured subtly toward the sea of phones still recording. A woman in the crowd shouted, "I've already sent my video to the police website," while others nodded, busy uploading evidence of Jamie's misconduct. With precise words that cut through what little bravado Jamie had left, Thomas said, "You came here seeking attention, Mr. Thompson. Congratulations. You have it, along with a formal charge for attempting to assault a royal guard. I trust this is the kind of viral content you were hoping to create." At that moment, the security officer stepped forward and placed a firm hand on Jamie's shoulder. "Sir, you will need to come with me." With one final display of military bearing, Thomas tucked the coffee cup into his belt, adjusted his rifle into its proper position, and resumed his stance, all in one fluid motion that spoke of many years of training. His eyes remained fixed ahead, but not before he cast one last look at Jamie, a look that made the young man visibly cringe. As Thomas returned to his post, the crowd burst into spontaneous applause. The sound echoed around the palace walls and drowned out Jamie's weak protests as the security officer led him away. Now the phones in the crowd were capturing something entirely different, a moment when tradition triumphed over disrespect. "That's how it's done," the veteran called out with thick emotion in his voice. Stepping forward, he removed his service cap and held it over his heart. 30 years in service, and I've never seen anything finer." Other veterans in the crowd followed suit, nodding in silent salute, a ripple of respect that said more than words ever could. A young boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, whispering, "Mum, when I grow up, I want to be just like him." The mother smiled through glistening tears. "Then you must learn what real strength looks like, darling. It isn't about pranks and social media, it's about dignity, just like this gentleman has shown us." The mood in the crowd had completely transformed. Those who had once laughed at Jamie's antics now looked ashamed, with some even deleting their earlier recordings. A group of teenagers who had been live-streaming ended their broadcasts abruptly. "That was proper respect," one exclaimed. "Did you see how he caught that cup? He's like a bloody superhero." An elderly woman corrected softly, "No, a superhero would show off. This is what true service looks like. Power in perfect control." Social media soon exploded with the incident. Jamie's livestream, intended for mockery, turned into a masterclass in consequences. Comments poured in. "This bloke just got schooled in class." And "trying to mess with a royal guard? That's a proper lesson in respect." A tour guide gathered her group closer and explained, "What you've just witnessed is why these guards are far more than mere attractions. They are elite soldiers chosen for their discipline and dedication. That coffee cup could have been very dangerous, and this guard has shown us why they are always ready." Two young women, still recording, approached Thomas. "Sir, would you mind being in our video? We're making a proper tribute to show what really happened today." The veteran agreed, and soon he was explaining to their followers the long history and importance of the guard tradition. Children, who earlier hid behind their parents, now stood in front of Thomas, trying to mimic his perfect posture. Their parents used the moment, not as a photo opportunity, but as a lesson in respect and duty. "See how still he stands," one father told his daughter. "That is what true dedication looks like." The crowd swelled even further, but the atmosphere was now one of admiration and respect. People maintained a polite distance, taking photos with genuine awe rather than treating Thomas as a prop for entertainment. Some even bowed slightly before snapping their pictures, recognizing the deep tradition he represented. At that point, 2 uniformed Metropolitan Police officers arrived at the palace gates, adding an official air to the situation. Jamie, standing awkwardly between them in his Social Media King t-shirt, which now seemed especially ironic, watched as one officer read him his rights. His phone still trembled in his hand as he continued streaming his own downfall, but it was clear that his prank had taken a serious turn. "Attempted assault on a royal guard is a serious offence, sir," the first officer said dryly, gesturing at the sea of phones still recording. "Your social media status does not grant you immunity from the law." The second officer began taking statements from witnesses, including the veteran who had tried to help earlier. "That coffee was clearly aimed at his face," the veteran stated firmly, adding, "In all my military experience, that is a direct assault." Jamie's face turned pale, almost ghostly, as he began to hear snippets of conversation around him. He might be reported to the American embassy, face a travel ban, and incur thousands of pounds in fines. His followers filled his live stream with comments like, "Bro, did you really think you could assault a royal guard? You've played yourself." The security officer who had first intervened stepped forward, holding up the coffee cup as evidence. "We will need this for our report," he said, carefully bagging it along with nearly 200 videos that had been collected from witnesses. A woman in the crowd shouted, "I've got it all in 4K!" as officers and onlookers alike provided their footage, creating a thorough digital record of Jamie's foolishness. Slowly, the swaggering social media star was replaced by a subdued young man who now clearly understood the full weight of his actions. "Can't we just delete the videos?" he whispered quietly. An officer replied, "The internet never forgets, mate, especially not something like this." As the police began to lead Jamie away, the veteran stepped forward one last time. "Young man," he said, his voice heavy with years of service, I hope you learned something today. The uniform you mocked was worn by men who died defending it, and the tradition you laughed at has survived for centuries, and the guard you tried to humiliate, he has just shown you what real dignity is." As Jamie was escorted toward the waiting police car, the crowd parted like the sea. Some shook their heads, while others recorded his final, shameful steps. What began as a laughable moment for some had turned into a powerful lesson in consequence, a moment when one man's disrespect was met by unyielding honor. Throughout it all, Thomas, the royal guard, stood unmoved. His posture remained perfect, his dignity intact. He had become more than just a soldier. He was a symbol of honor and tradition that Jamie had utterly failed to understand. By sunset, the video of the incident had gone viral, splashed across news networks with headlines such as "Royal Guard shows perfect restraint against social media prankster" and "Dignity defeats disrespect. Royal Guard's response goes viral." The slow-motion replay of the coffee cup catch captivated millions, with military veterans and analysts appearing on TV to discuss the technique and discipline displayed in that crucial moment. As one former Royal Guard commander explained on BBC News, it wasn't just about stopping a cup of coffee. It was about upholding the dignity of a centuries-old tradition. Social media exploded with the story. What was meant as a prank turned into a lesson in consequences, viewed by over 50 million people. The hashtag #RoyalGuardRespect trended worldwide as the incident became a reminder that when disrespect meets discipline, true power shines through. Jamie's social media empire crumbled overnight. Sponsors fled, followers vanished, and his apology video only brought more criticism. The fines were severe, and the permanent UK ban hurt him even more. Meanwhile, Thomas received a commendation at a palace ceremony. Staying humble, he said simply, "I only did my duty, as every guard before me has done, and every guard after me will do." That very coffee cup was later used as a training example at the Royal Military Academy, a reminder that sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest. Tradition upheld with dignity will always triumph over fleeting fame. Today, when tourists visit Buckingham Palace, they still whisper about the coffee cup incident, a lesson about respect that will be passed down for generations. If you enjoyed this story of the Royal Guard's dignity triumphing over disrespect, do like, subscribe, and click the bell icon.